Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 491 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. It is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and Duke now holds a victory over the Louisville Cardinals. That's what we are here to discuss. I am your host for this episode. I'm Sam Klein. I'm joined, as I usually am, by Jason Evans and Donald Wine. Jason, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing quite nicely this morning. Thank you very much for asking.
And Donald Wine.
I, too, am off to a great start this morning. So this is good.
I think you guys both are feeling, just based on your introductions, the same sort of generally pleasant, not overwhelmingly positive vibes that I'm feeling from this game between Duke and Louisville. The final score is 79-62. The story early in this game is that Duke let Louisville get out to a little bit of a lead before they clawed back and went on a run there in the middle of the first half before basically taking control, although never running away with it. It sort of felt like there was a point in this game where I thought, the final score is going to be big enough that it's not going to adequately explain how much Duke struggled early in this game. And then I feel like we kind of got to a score that feels like the right final score, if that makes
Sam,
any sense.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to say I was perfectly fine with this victory. And I know there's a fair degree of angst of people who are like, Louisville's barely, not even a top 300 team. I mean, they're awful. And frankly, the team that we played last night, the team that has been playing for the past couple of weeks in the ACC, is at least a little bit closer to the Louisville everyone expected them to be this year. Their recent results are pretty good. And there wasn't a single moment in the second half where we weren't up by 10 points. Maybe people who were expecting us to win by 30, but again, that's not the Louisville that we played. So I'm more than happy with the 17-point win.
I should mention that Vegas had us as an 18-point favorite. We won by 17, so we did about what Vegas expected us to do.
I think what Jason felt to me the most disappointing, I guess, concerning, is how well Louisville jumped out at the beginning of the game and how Duke was kind of sluggish. Yep. Knowing the struggles that Duke has had on these back-to-backs or nearly back-to-backs with the Saturday Monday. Being back at home, the crowd, even though Duke is playing a team that's at the bottom of the conference, it didn't feel like the crowd was out of it. It felt like the crazies were engaged. I feel like it helps that Nolan Smith was in the building because it gave people a reason to be excited to be there early. So no reason for the crazies to let up. And yet Duke is out to a pretty slow start. There's a point in this game where Duke is losing, I think it's 18-9 Louisville. They're 6 or 7 minutes into the game before they come storming back. So we can review all of that. Let's do the headlines first. And Donald, I'm going to let you go first. Did you pick a listener headline, or did you come with your own ammunition today?
No, there was quite a few headlines. So I'm going to list a few of them and let's see if you guys had a couple of these, because I know there were some good ones out there. Let's start with Mark Esselstein. And I apologize if we're mispronouncing his name, Esselstein. I hopefully that's the right one, but he goes.
A couple of folks, Donald, have started sending us the pronunciations with their emails, which I very much appreciate. If you are on the fence, you might as well tell us. Klein rhymes with whatever Klein rhymes
wine.
With. Wine. Klein rhymes with. That's right.
But yes, we do appreciate those. But Mark says, despite Elville gets the L. So there's a lot of alliteration, a lot of puns there. We also had Clinton Weaver, and we had a lot of puns dealing with just Louisville or the Cardinals, or in this one, he goes upset not in the cards for Elville. And again, L being spelled as an L. Ellis. Highlander had a good one. He goes, no surprises as Duke shuffles cards out of Cameron. And then we have Courtney Kruger, who goes Young blocks and Cameron rocks, then Proctor threes and Louisville flees. So I thought those are pretty good.
That last one from Courtney Kruger, I feel like I would like to try saying a few times fast, but I'm not going to do it here. Maybe I'll try it offline. Early. Jason, did you have any headlines that stood out?
Yeah, there were two others I liked, and Donald already took a few of the ones I enjoyed. I thought Chris Bynum reflected what a lot of people had for this, which is they took the Louisville cards as in card play, and Chris said Blue Devils have the winning hand as they trump the cards for their 20th win. And then Ron Pera, Duke is rolling. Much love for Nolan. I just like the fact that we could shout out Nolan Smith. Great to have him back in Cameron, even if this has been a really struggling season for him.
The one other email that I really liked that wasn't specifically a headline, and maybe we'll get to this in the good, is Jonathan Bowe sent us that he wants to start calling Shire Mr. ATO, as in after timeout.
After timeout,
I love that.
The after timeout plays that John Shire was calling yesterday, and that the broadcasters had picked up on and were talking about, I think, in glowing terms, particularly given that John Shire is a disciple of another expert in the ATO play.
I feel like we are seeing more and more glimpses of John Shire putting his stamp on the program. And like last night, the ball movement and the way that these guys were pushing the pace and, looking for each other I feel like this is the offense that John Shire has been trying to build for a while, and full credit to him. I mean, if the team appears to be peaking at the right time, or at least coming into their own at the right time, which is what it certainly looks like is happening, I mean, that reflects on the coach in a pretty big way. And for people who don't remember, before Mike Krzyzewski was rolling out 30-win seasons left and right, back in the 80s and early 90s, Duke teams were known for peaking at the right time. And it appears John Shire may be getting that right.
And you know what? A lot of the national media is saying the same thing. They're talking about how, as we look towards the NCAA tournament, people start kind of prognosticating who's in, who's out, who's in the bubble, who's the 7th seed, whatever. They're saying that wherever Duke lies, we're one of the few teams in the tournament right now that people should fear, because we're playing our best basketball at the right time.
Maybe this is our first topic in the good, which is John Shire's coaching here, particularly given the dynamics that we talked about with Nolan Smith being on the other sideline. We know that Louisville was going to come in with as much knowledge as anybody, if not the most knowledge of any opponent this year about what Duke was going to do. And it still feels like, to both of your points, that John Shire is tinkering with the game plan.
The announcers said that. They were talking about, I'm sure they got a great scout from Nolan Smith, ha ha ha, and everybody was laughing and stuff. I don't know that that's necessarily true. How well does Nolan Smith know this current Duke team? He knows Jeremy Roach. I guess he knows Jalen Blakes a little bit. Jalen Blakes didn't play in this game. I mean, not John Shire. Nolan Smith doesn't know Kyle Filipowski. He doesn't know Ryan Young. He doesn't know Dariq Whitehead. He doesn't know Derek Lively. I thought this was sort of an overblown kind of commentator thing that I'm not sure I trust.
Jason, I'm going to disagree with you, because we don't know all the ins and outs of exactly when Nolan decided he was going to leave Duke.
Right, he recruited them.
And so he was at least part of the recruitment here. So he was talking about, all right, what are the implications for all of these guys' careers coming here, playing together? I'm sure they had discussions about this, even if Nolan maybe knew, even at the back of his mind, that he wasn't going to be part of this team. And then the other thing is that I'm sure, just as an alum and as someone who's plugged in, he follows everybody on social media. He kind of I assume that Nolan Smith knows what's going on at Duke, even if he is not, part of the program actively anymore. And all that being said, he knows John Shire, and I'm sure that he and John Shire have had discussions about the kind of coaching styles that they intended to take from Coach K, the kind of stuff that they would improve on. You're not, I don't think you're a good learner of, from whoever your teacher is, if you don't sort of look holistically at all the things they're teaching you and sort of decide consciously, I'm going to continue this part of their program and I'm going to discard this part, or I'm going to change this other part. So I think that it's good work by John Shire, even if it's against an opponent like Louisville, that even if they've been playing, better recently, is not one of the better teams in the ACC. Let's go to other sort of good topics. And Donald, I want you to start, because I know that you've got the topic that I am most excited about, which is the fact that Duke does not commit a lot of turnovers in this game. One of its lowest turnover marks of the season.
Look, we have talked about turnovers all season. We have ragged on the fact that they need to take care of the basketball and that they have not done so a lot this season. So I'm going to start by saying thank you for having a game where it felt like we relatively took care of the basketball. 6 turnovers is something I'll take that any time of the week. 6 turnovers is not that much in 2 halves of college basketball. So I really enjoyed the fact that they were looking for each other. And Jason, I know you want to talk about ball movement. The ball movement, doesn't happen if you don't have the basketball in your hands. They were taking care of the basketball, but they're also getting it. And it means they were putting everybody in good situation for success. All 5 starters had 10 points or more. Like, the ball movement had a lot to do with that, Jason. And I think also the fact they were looking for each other and finding each other in good spots, and they were making great decisions with the basketball. And that's why we had, even though we had the slow start, we were able to turn it on because we were able to have those possessions end with Duke points.
Yeah, and you're talking about no turnovers. I'm talking about ball movement, really talking about the same thing, which is that Duke handled the ball well on offense, made smart decisions with the ball. This was a team that had 7 assists on their first 7 buckets. They ended up with 19 assists and just 6 turnovers. Every player who played had an assist in this game. And all that passing and all those good shots led to really balanced scoring. Donald, you mentioned all 5 starters in double figures. We also had Jacob Grandison getting 9 points off the bench. Duke ends up shooting 54% on 2-point field goals, which is a really good number for this team. This is a team that struggled to get to that 50% mark on 2-point field goals throughout the season. The other thing we did was all the ball movement resulted in a lot of open 3-pointers. And that is something, look, Duke has struggled on threes all year, and it hasn't been that we've been taking bad 3-pointers. Like, you watch Carolina play, you watch the shots that Caleb Love and RJ Davis puts up, you watch some of these other teams and you go, well, that, whether it went in or not, that was not a good shot that they just took.
Jason, these
aren't, don't say that. I'm sorry.
These aren't like 25-foot, hand in the face, fall back, step back threes that we're taking or that we're missing. We're missing ones that were like, oh man, if there's nobody within, 20 feet of us, and we're missing those. At least early in the season we were.
We're missing shots that should be taken, that the coach would tell you, take that shot. I don't care if you miss it. You're supposed to take that shot if you are that open, if we work the ball to you in that kind of way. And it was frustrating for a while, but in recent games, it starts to feel like, it's coming around. And look, it may be, I sort of feel like this Duke team is probably like a 35% or so 3-point shooting team, which is about an average 3-point shooting team nationally. And for a long stretch of the season, they were shooting about like 31%. Well, maybe we're in a stretch now where they're going to shoot close to 40% to balance things out. I mean, if you're a 35% team from 3, you're going to have some stretches where you shoot 30%. You have some stretches where you shoot 40%. Maybe we are now in a stretch where Duke's going to shoot 40% with some degree of regularity. It makes a big difference.
I don't know if that's how the percentages work, but I appreciate at least your optimism for it. And maybe this is a moment, Jason, where we can highlight some of the guys that were making the threes for Duke. Tyrese Proctor has really evolved into a great 3-point shooter. It seems like recently for Duke, he's gotten a lot more comfortable with his shot. His 3-pointer was one of the highlights from the other night, and last night he's 4 for 8 from beyond the arc. And as you mentioned, Jacob Grandison off the bench, 3 for 5 for all 9 of his points coming on 3-pointers. So it's great to see that some of those guys, and that's even considering a down night relative to his extremely hot shooting recently by Dariq Whitehead.
Yeah, look, Whitehead was due for, I was going to put this in the bad, but we can mention it now. After, I think I said the other day, Whitehead was shooting like close to 70% on 3-pointers over like the past 3 games or something absurd like that. So he was due for a game where he missed some. Just the law of averages tell you that was going to happen. Tyrese Proctor, by the way, is now 6 for his last 12 3-pointers. And this from a guy who, he's now hitting close to 31% on his threes. He was down at like 25% for most of the season. So it's been a big step up for him.
Jeremy Roach, I want to talk about him for a minute because his 14 points, his 6 assists, I thought really, helped us get back into the game and also helped us put them away down the stretch. I think.
Donald, wait, you missed the biggest number on Jeremy Roach. 14 points, 6 assists, Zero
turnovers. Yes. And it's not, and he's been injury or not injury prone, turnover prone the past few games as well. But, the rest of the team has as well. So I'm not going to bag on him individually for that. But I do like the fact that he was able to move the ball around and really set the tone from a leadership standpoint when he was on the floor and, making everyone get involved into the offense. Like you said, everybody had assists, but the fact that he had 6 of them and was able to take care of the basketball, I thought was incredibly efficient and also led to our success single-handedly.
Regarding Jeremy Roach, we've talked, several times about the fact that he can be, he's sort of Jekyll and Hyde from half to half. He only has 2 points in the first half. He had 12 points in the second half. And that included down the stretch, in the final 6 minutes, he had 8 points. As that game was sort of kind of maybe a little bit too close for comfort, Jeremy Roach is the guy who again and again made sure that the Duke lead stayed in double digits.
Can I also say, as a good, when we get to favorite play, there are a lot of candidates for favorite play. There was a lot of exciting moments in this basketball game.
Oh man, did we have a ton of
highlight reels?
We had a ton of dunks in this game.
Dunks, yeah. I mean, look, honestly, like dunks. If there's a couple of plays where dunks may not be the favorite play, like I get it because there was a lot of plays where Duke was playing exciting basketball. And it's not like they don't play exciting basketball, but this last night, not only was it a little bit relaxing towards the end, it was also exhilarating because they had the knack for finding everyone for the spectacular play. And that's not something we get a lot of in games, but there were a lot of spectacular plays in this one.
Going back to Jeremy Roach, one of the other things I noticed at the end of the game, he was doing the post-game interview with the sideline reporter and, says all the right things. She asked him at one point, talk to me about Tyrese Proctor. And he hesitated for a second because I could feel a little bit of the who's the point guard on this team tension going on, because Proctor has clearly taken that role from Roach, at least in terms of like taking the ball up. Although in this game, Roach has 6 assists to Proctor's 3, but he handled that, I thought, with a lot of poise. And I could see a guy like Proctor, who has had some ups and downs in his time at Duke, or Roach rather, who has had ups and downs in his time at Duke, feeling like put off by the fact that Proctor has gotten the ball in his hands a lot more than Roach has this season, but he's playing the role of leader on this team perfectly. I want to talk about a couple other players who had good performances here, and one of them that I know Jason wants to talk about is Mark Mitchell. Jason, before I throw it to you, my observation on Mitchell is that, it's great that he has been playing so much better the last couple of weeks. I wonder how much of it is like the bad version of his improved performance would be he's doing it against maybe lesser competition. He's doing it against Louisville, against Syracuse, teams that are not expected to make the NCAA tournament. On the other hand, the other thing that I was worried about with Mitchell is that he's had kind of shaky performances, and now Dariq Whitehead is back from injury and is at least hitting his shots, even if he doesn't seem like he's fully in sync yet. And that Mark Mitchell would become dismayed at the fact that Whitehead is eating into his minutes. That does not appear to be the case for Mark Mitchell. He seems to have found some level of focus, whether that's because he's great against playing the zone, whether that's because he's figured out the defensive rotations for himself. But it feels to me, Jason, like Mark Mitchell has made a lot of strides the last couple of weeks, and that continued to show yesterday.
Yeah, well, it's very clear that Mark Mitchell listens to this podcast and is a big fan of the DBR podcast because he was clearly inspired by me bagging on him a couple weeks ago and saying that I thought that he would not be a starter for much longer. Since that comment, Mark Mitchell has been playing the best basketball of his Duke career. I thought he had another really strong first half. Remember, he was really strong in the first half against Syracuse. Again, in this game, I thought he was really strong in the first half. He's a guy who he was getting boards, crashing the lane hard and getting a lot of dunks as a result of it, being just super active, using his athleticism and motor to make a difference in this game. I thought he played great defense as well. We've talked a lot about the offense, ball movement, and things like that. I actually thought Duke had an outstanding defensive game. We forced Louisville into difficult shots. Mark Mitchell, Dariq Whitehead, Tyrese Proctor, and Jeremy Roach. I saw all 4 of those guys working really hard, fighting through screens, staying in front of their men, just doing the right thing when Louisville was trying to put pressure on us on the perimeter. Derek Lively, of course, was again great on defense. I mean, good Lord, what a difference maker. You cannot talk about the Duke team today and the Duke team of a month and a half ago in the same breath because of the difference that Derek Lively has made from a defensive standpoint. Somehow, I don't know who's doing the official box scores, but every single game, like they said he only had 2 block shots in this game. That's an absurd number. There's no way he only had 2 block shots in this game, Derek Lively. But his ability to be a terror in the lane and hedge screens, it just felt to me like Duke's defense it's outstanding.
Jason, I feel like
Louisville
you
didn't get
made
to
this
60
accusation a couple times about the official scorer and Derek Lively's blocks in your notes for the next couple of games. Can you just?
I need to make note of it. You're right. I'm going to
note all the timestamps on all the Derek Lively blocks, and
I will.
And let's compare, because on the one hand, I find that you are vaguely inclined towards conspiracies. On the other hand, I feel the same way, and I'd like to think that I'm more clear-headed. So take me along on your ride. I'd like to jump on the train.
I actually think a lot of it is that he doesn't necessarily get a block, but you can tell that he has impacted the shot and impacted whether or not the shot goes in. And maybe it feels like that should be a block. I mean, you see guys go in the lane against him, and suddenly they're like, "Oh, I need to shoot this an extra 6 feet in the air."
I have always advocated for the fact that in the NFL and in football, you have a half sack, right? If 2 guys bring quarterback down, they both get credit for that sack and they just split it. They should have half blocks, because there's definitely times where he either alters a shot, or there was a couple last night where it felt like him and someone else was also getting their hands on the ball, and the official score is like, I don't know who to give this to, so I'm just gonna, I don't know, give it to the team, I guess. So yeah, if I feel like if there was half blocks, Lively would be averaging like 8 blocks a game.
Jason, talk to me about Ryan Young's performance. It feels like he's starting to settle into the role that we anticipated for him at the beginning of the season, where Filipowski and Lively are the starters, but Ryan Young has become, one of the most comfortable backups that we have seen at Duke.
So I can't believe that in back-to-back games, we're going to talk about Ryan Young just packing the hell out of some dude.
And there was one, and there was one that he got a foul call, and I was like, and I know Ryan Young wanted to argue it, but he kind of had, he kind of grabbed the ball and kind of slapped the ball and turned around, and you could see his face was like, "Oh no, I got that, man!" And they called a foul on him. I was so upset for him.
Yeah, but he gets 2 just ridiculous pack jobs in like the final 3 minutes or so of this game. Again, when it was kind of a little bit close. Gentlemen, I have got a stat for you. You ready for this? Did you guys look at the plus minus?
No.
Oh boy. Ryan Young plays 14 minutes. His plus minus was plus 24. That's a ridiculous number. He was plus 24 in his 14 minutes on the floor. I mean, that's just crazy. And a lot of it was that I thought his rebounding was just outstanding. Like, that man fights for rebounds just like nobody else on this team. He had 3 offensive rebounds in his 14 minutes. Duke, by the way, in this game, again, comes close to the 40% offensive rebounding rate. We're at 38.7. It's just really tough to beat a team when they're grabbing 4 out of every 10 shots that they miss. and as a result, Duke dominated second chance points 16-6. But I feel like a lot of that was Ryan Young. And I just can't get enough of a plus 24 in 14 minutes of playing time. I know plus minus can be very deceptive, but Ryan Young had a huge number. By the way, when we get to the bad, there's someone on this Duke team who has a really bad plus minus number that I'm going to talk about.
So if that's it for the good, let's take a quick break, and we will be back to discuss the bad from Duke's game against Louisville. Stick around. We are back, and we are talking about the bad. Jason, I'm going to let you go first, because I know let's stick on the plus minus topic. Who from this game delivered the worst performance, at least in terms of plus minus for Duke?
Well, so the guy who had the worst number was Derek Lively at -7. But I don't feel like Lively. I feel like that may have just been, he got caught at the wrong moments in the game. Although there were a few times that, we were talking about Lively's block shots. There were a few times that that Lively and Kyle Filipowski both went for the block shot, and neither one of them got it. And it meant that there was a Louisville big man like underneath the basket, just getting an easy putback. And it's tough for big men to discuss and decide, hey, I'm going to go for this block. You don't go, obviously it's hard to have that kind of level of communication. So that's going to happen occasionally. But I did notice that a few times. But the person who I wanted to talk about, who I thought had a troubling plus minus, was Kyle Filipowski, who is -2. He did not have one of his better games. I'm not sure if you guys noticed this down the stretch. Kyle Filipowski was not playing for Duke in the final 5 minutes or so. John Shire, I think, had noticed that Flip was struggling in this game. We talked about turnovers earlier. Duke only had 6 turnovers. 3 of those 6 turnovers were by Kyle Filipowski. All 3 of them, I think, were pretty egregious, like trying to dribble his way in traffic. Like he tries to go behind his back when he's dribbling in traffic. Man, that's tough for like a great dribbler to do. And Kyle's a very, very good dribbler for a guy who's 7'1", but dribbling behind his back in traffic is just causing big problems for him. I do want to say Flip had some really sick spin moves in the second half at times, but those loose turnovers are a problem. And like I said, Shire decided that Flip wasn't the guy to be in there down the stretch. He went small. Both Mitchell and Whitehead were playing late in the game as Duke's 2 forwards, and with Ryan Young and Derek Lively at centered. And I just, this was not Flip's game. He had the least minutes of any of the starters. In fact, Derek Whitehead even topped him in minutes. So Flip was 6th in minutes, considering he is Duke's best player, considering he's, a first-team All-ACCer. For John Shire to decide that Flip should not get more minutes than even one of the guys off the bench, I think is indicative of what was a struggling game for him. He also struggled on defense, I thought. Flip was the one, like Duke played great defense, other than Kyle Filipowski, who he had trouble on screens and he was letting his man get the ball in the wrong spots.
Ken Heps, one of our emailers, and he asked us, why does Flip continue to insist on dribbling behind the back? It feels like he turns the ball over about 80% of the time when he does it. It is an instance of sort of the curse of being the most overall offensively skilled guy on the team, is that Filipowski feels, one, like he has to do stuff like this, but also 2, like, he's got to keep the mantle. And so there's something to be said for like, hey man, I'm trying to get better and make these things happen live in games just like everyone else is. The problem is that it stands out, especially relative to his usually stellar play when he makes these silly turnovers. I think you mentioned this, Jason. He leads the team in turnovers. He's half of the responsible for half the turnovers last night for Duke, 3 of the 6. So hopefully he sits down in front of that film and puts a little bit more chalk on his hands for the next game, because he's got to hang on to the basketball. Donald, talk to me a little bit about Duke's scoring inside. I know that they had a pretty good night from 2, but there were a good number of missed easy shots at the basket, and that's not just Filipowski. We're talking about a number of other guys on the team.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Jason, as you mentioned in the good, we shot like 55% from 2-point, which is pretty good. This is, especially given for our team, that's what we've been striving for this year. But it feels like we left a lot on the table, right? Because we missed a lot of bunnies. We missed a lot of layups. We missed a couple of dunks. Tyrese Proctor, for as great as he shot from beyond the arc, he was 4 for 8. He was 0 for 5 from 2-point land. And a lot, we're not talking like, 16, 17-foot jumpers. We're talking layups or close shots that he missed at the rim. And it's just about, for me, it's about concentration. But the problem with missing these bunnies is that it leads to our shooting droughts. We had 4 shooting droughts last night where we missed at least 4 shots, and those shooting droughts went at least 2 minutes. That's 8 minutes of basketball where we were not scoring baskets. And ironically, last night, a lot of those
one of them went for 5 minutes all by itself.
Right. And a funny thing is, a lot of those shooting droughts last night ended with 3-pointers, which is not something that, we usually do. It's usually us hitting a dunk or getting an and one and going to the rim, and then we're finally broken free of it. But it was weird because as great as we shot from inside the arc, I thought we left a lot on the table. And, yes, last night was Louisville. We cannot do that against a better team. They will take advantage of it. And we've seen that when we have scoring droughts or shooting droughts, that teams take advantage of that and they can creep back into a ball game we're entering the point in time where we're playing good teams from here on out. The meat of our terrible schedule part is gone. We had Notre Dame, we had Louisville. We now have games that we need to win to secure, better seeding in the ACC tournament, better seeding in the NCAA tournament, and every team is going to be gunning for us because we can still be considered a signature win for them. We got to make sure we're hitting our easy shots. If we miss our difficult shots, I'm okay with that, but don't miss the easy ones.
I counted 4 misses at the rim in the first 3.5 minutes of this game, and several of them were really. I mean, it wasn't like these were hotly contested shots. At about the 6-minute mark of the first half, 6 minutes left, when Mark Mitchell missed that wide open dunk on a follow, I was ready to pull my hair out. I was like, I can't believe that this team is doing this. We probably should have won this game by 25 plus points if we merely made a mild percentage of our bunnies at the rim. By the way, folks, go back and listen to DBR Bites. Was it number 12 or number 13? I did an extensive deep dive on how bad Duke is shooting at the rim. We're not atrocious. We're not like worst in the country, but we got some guys who really need to clean up their act when it comes to shooting around the basket.
And I talked in the first segment about Dariq Whitehead's performance and how, it's a bummer that he didn't make his threes here. He's one of the guys that maybe this is comfort coming back from injury, but clearly needs to be a bit more focused when he's near the rim. That's not it's a mild concern for this year, but it's definitely an issue if he's in the NBA and he's missing the easy baskets because there are no easy baskets in the NBA. Donald, you mentioned looking ahead at the schedule. I think it's interesting to note that, as you said, Duke's got tough games, I think, left on the schedule. Virginia Tech is sort of the lowest rated team that Duke has left on the calendar, and Duke lost to Virginia Tech earlier this season. So there's payback in store for Virginia Tech and for NC State. And then, of course, Duke finishes the season at North Carolina. So 3 teams that are all, either fighting for NCAA tournament seeding or for, entrance into the NCAA tournament. A couple of those teams like NC State that Duke is fighting with for their position in the conference record. So a lot of games of intrigue here at the end of the regular season.
And quick sidebar, I know Jason is going to be at the game against Virginia Tech on this coming weekend. I just got a press pass for the game against NC State next week, so I'm trying to figure out how to get down to there. And then for those of you who are going to the Dean Dome on the 4th, I will be there as well. So you're coming up in a stretch where you're going to have the DBR podcast represented at the next 3 games, hopefully. So that's going to be pretty good. That means I feel like we're undefeated. No, I'm sorry. No, we're not undefeated.
Oh no! I went to the Clemson game.
I went to the Miami game.
So wait, have I seen the only win in person?
No, I went to the Ohio State game.
Okay, Georgia Tech. Yeah. Okay.
And so no, I think we're just right around in line. Yeah.
So we need
nothing out of the ordinary.
But I feel like we're
like 500 or we're a little above 500.
I feel like our press row game is heating up as the team does as we enter March.
Hey, let me do a real quick thing. This is neither good nor bad, but it is worth mentioning. Guys, is it just me? Is Corey Alexander like one of the worst color guys around? He's terrible. He loves to talk, but he never has anything. I can't recall the last time Corey Alexander said something that was enlightening. There was a moment in this game. So right at the end of the half, Louisville hit a shot from the corner. The refs called it a 2-point shot. And as they went to break at halftime, they showed the Louisville player with his toe clearly on the line, like it was not a 3. And Corey Alexander goes, "You can see, looks to me like there's plenty of space there. It looks like that's going to be a 3-pointer." And I'm just like, I swear Corey Alexander like doesn't watch the replays or something. I don't understand that dude. He's terrible. I don't understand. I don't understand why we get so many Corey Alexander games. He's awful.
I offer you Randolph Childress, who does not actually talk about the actual game. He just talks about all the times he beat Duke when he was playing for Wake Forest. So that's who I offer.
I would say that Corey Alexander is mostly interested in talking about the old ACC more than he is in talking about the current ACC. So they have that in common.
They've done games together where Corey is on the play-by-play and Randolph Childress is the color commentator. So,
oh my God,
yeah, those are
tough.
Fun.
Look, the mute button was made for those games.
I do like how overtly Corey Alexander is just like, I just really like people from Virginia, which is such an arbitrary thing. Like how many times did we have to hear about how far Leesburg is from Durham? Because that's where Jeremy Roach is from. They even asked him about it in the post-game interview, which like so irrelevant, but whatever. I don't necessarily mute the games, but I definitely only like go in and out with what the commentators are saying. So Jason, you gotta let that go, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, the truth is, I'm
never gonna be happy.
I wouldn't have bothered to mention it other than that just blatant moment at the end of the first half when he was like, "Yeah, it looks like his foot's behind the line." I'm like, "Are you watching the same replay I'm watching?"
I missed the replay and I heard him say, "It looks like his foot's behind the line." So I was like, "Oh, I guess Louisville's going to have 34 points at halftime." And then I looked up and Louisville still had 33, and they didn't come back to the topic at all. So weird, guys. Let's pick our favorite plays from this game and get out of here. Jason, I'm going to let you go first.
So I got two nominees. I can't decide which one of these I want to pick. So the first one is the back-to-back dunks in the first 4 minutes on back-to-back plays. Kyle Filipowski fed Derek Lively for a dunk, and then like the next trip down, Derek Lively fed Kyle Filipowski for a dunk. I was like, that's a lot of fun. But I think I'm going to go with about 3.5 minutes left in the first half. L. Ellis goes in the lane, gets his shot blocked by either Derek Lively, Jacob Grandison, or Mark Mitchell. One of those three guys. Maybe all three of them. I think all three of them blocked it at the same time. Anyway, Tyrese Proctor grabbed the ball, throws it ahead to Jeremy Roach, who throws a sick lob to Mark Mitchell for the slam. And if you recall, the way this play began was Mark Mitchell blocking the shot. So I think Mark Mitchell made it from one end to the other, like instantly. That's my favorite play.
This is the play that I was talking about for the reason for the half block, because I'm pretty sure Lively got credit for that block, but there was three guys involved in that play.
I'm taking the same play. That was the one that stood out to me, where I was like, you don't see plays like that very often, where there are two phenomenal passes, and when Proctor is throwing the pass to Roach, he's like already pointing at the rim for like, go get the, go get the alley-oop, because it is the, I mean, it felt, Donald, you tell me if I'm wrong here, you're the expert. This felt like a classic like soccer setup where you're like getting the guy in the corner, and as you're doing that, the guy who's actually going to be scoring the ball is streaking directly at the goal. Yeah,
it was the pass before the pass, and kind of seeing how the play can develop. And you're like, if you just get right there, I don't think Roach had the ball yet when he was kind of like, yeah, just go right there, because he knew the ball was coming to him, and it was a very quick alley-oop for the dunk. But hey, guys,
by the way, the thing I loved about that play, when Roach threw the ball, I was like, who's he throwing that to? Like, I don't even think Mitchell was on this. And then Mark Mitchell comes flying in there. It was great.
So, guys, I really love that play. I actually want to offer up two other plays. So the honorable mention I have was at the 13:39 mark in the second half. We missed a free throw. I forgot who missed a free throw, but Ryan Young got the offensive rebound over three Louisville dudes and kicked it out to Grandison, who hit a three-pointer. I thought that was great. My play of the game actually is again a double series of plays. It was in the second half, 17:46 mark. Flip did that spin move and then had a dunk at the other end, which was sick. As everyone's celebrating, they go back down the floor, and Derek Lively just absolutely jams up the layup, two-handed block, and on top of that, got the jump ball, and the possession arrow was going Duke's way, so it turned into a turnover for us going the other way. So I like that. I always like the plays that end up where there's something happening on both ends of the floor. That was my favorite one, but I do enjoy the alley-oop in the first half. There was a lot of those.
Keep that Kyle Filipowski play in mind every time he awkwardly dribbles the ball away at like in the middle of the paint. Because
wait. Spin moves are one thing. That was a great spin move, but it's different when you're dribbling.
This is what I'm saying is that you have to, if we're going to we can dog on, you have to be fair. You have to dog on him for the times when it doesn't work, and you have to celebrate him for the times that it does. And whichever of those is like the one that you're oriented to, I guess is whether you overall feel good about Kyle Filipowski's ball handling.
So I have to admit that when I have a piece of, a document where I put all my notes, and I have a section for the good and a section for the bad. And I was like, Kyle Filipowski with some 6 spin moves. Kyle Filipowski needs to stop losing the ball on his spin moves. And I was like, am I putting this in the good or the bad? I can't. No, you're right, Sam. It's tough. It's tough.
You gotta take them both, because this is the player that he is, and hopefully, he's focused on the times when he succeeds in these plays and not the times when he fails. So I think that is going to do it for us here. Stay in touch with us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. We will be back very soon. We have to give you a preview for the upcoming Virginia Tech game. Duke's got only return games now for the rest of the season, and has an outside chance, I think, still at getting the double bye, although it seems like Duke is firmly sort of on track for the single bye in the ACC tournament. So we'll be back to talk about all of that and more very soon. For Jason Evans, for Donald Wine, I am Sam Klein. This has been episode 491 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Duke Band, take us home.